Live from clickorlando.com, this is News 6 at 5:30. This is a News 6 Plus takeover. Here now is Matt Austin and Ginger Gadsden with Florida's Fourth Estate.
This week on Florida's Fourth Estate, we whip up some wild Florida headlines like a dust devil at home plate.
I just saw him freaked out, just trying to fight his way out of it.
Summer's almost here and the Sharks are early. A big one latches on to a teen girl. And our guest, longtime Florida journalist Jason Garcia, talks about how Florida's open records laws may be closing quickly.
Ron Desantis is about to be subjected to scrutiny unlike any he has ever been through as a top-tier presidential candidate. Right? You're going to have media from across the country looking into him. And one of the places they would normally be going for is all his travel he's taken as governor, who's he met with at the governor's mansion during his time as governor. And suddenly, all of these records are going to be walled off from everyone.
What's up, you crazy Floridians? So glad to have you with us for another edition of Florida's Fourth Estate. We've got a fantastic guest this week talking about Florida's sunshine laws, which we've always been known for, but some of them are getting rolled back right now. We're going to have a little discussion with another journalist about that. But before we do, we've got some crazy Florida headlines. One of them really threw me off this week. I'm Matt Austin. Glad you're with us.
And I'm Ginger Gadsden. Welcome to Florida's Fourth Estate. Yeah, this headline is still trending on clickorlando.com. We love the water. We love the sunshine. That's what we do here in Florida. We spend a lot of time at the beach. Well, lo and behold, another shark bite, Matt. And we don't call them attacks because the sharks live in the water and they just encounter us. But there's this.
I call them attacks. Hold on. They're attacks. I know PETA can come after me if they want. If somebody comes up to me and bites me, even if I'm in their house, I still call it an attack. I'm sorry.
Okay. Was the shark holding a knife? That would make it attack.
It was holding hundreds of knives in its mouth.
Its little razor teeth. Well, the pictures that go along with this story, it is just hard to watch. So we apologize if you're trying to have dinner or about to make dinner.
Little gruesome.
13-year-old girl, but look at her. It's in her side, her thigh, part of her leg. It was, oh my gosh. So she's probably like the bravest teen you're ever going to meet. But her name is Ella Reed. And this is at Fort Pierce Beach. And she said she suddenly felt a sharp pain on her side. And look at the outline of the shark's mouth.
Big set of teeth. I mean, maybe 8-10 inches around.
She's going to be fine, but she fought that thing and won.
Speaking of kids, schools have been a big topic of conversation lately. There have been a ton of controversial things going on, but one of the biggest stories that really has a big impact on parents and kids alike that people really haven't been talking about is a big decision by the state legislature and the governor who decided to push back school start times. So research for years has been saying kids operate better when they go to school a little later, when they have more sleep. I mean, this is the way we human beings operate. And so the legislature actually signed a law into place in which kids in middle school, they cannot start before 8 o'clock. And in high school, they can't start before 8:30, which is a huge difference. I have two high schoolers right now. They go in, their first class is at 7:20. I mean, that's so brutal. So if you need to get on a bus, they're waking up at 6:15 in the morning, and you can't get a high school kid to bed at a decent hour. So I actually think this is something most of us could agree on, Gigi, and I know my kids are certainly happy about it.
I mean, I wish they had this when I was a kid because I remember it was just so hard for my mom to wake us all up, and she basically started threatening us. That's how it that's how it ended. And so, but the good news is everyone's got 3 years to get ready because it doesn't take effect until July of 2026. So they've got to figure out, I'm sure, the bus situation, transportation, and figure out all this stuff to get the kids to school at this particular time. But I don't think you'll see any kid complaining, any parents complaining, because all the studies show the more rest these kids get, the better off they are. And they can only get rest if they start school at a later hour.
I was a heavy sleeper in high school, and I had the same thing, 7:20. My dad would march across the house, and if he had to come over to my side of the house after listening to my alarm clock, you know how he would wake me up? he would take
Throw water
ice
on
cold
you.
water from the Culligan and he would pour it on my face.
I just made that up.
No, that is not made up. I thought I maybe had told you that before. But that is what he would do. Ice water on the face.
That's crazy. My mom would just snatch the covers off of all of us and then give us a look. And
I could sleep without covers.
Had to do. Yeah,
I could sleep without covers all day long. Hey, another big one. This is also interesting, Gigi. I wanted to throw this in while we were talking about it. USDA decided our kids are too fat.
Give me a break.
All these chunky kids,
it's chocolate milk doing it, right?
They have the fix. They're going to take the little chocolate milks out of school. So they're talking about getting rid of chocolate milk, which was like the one good thing about a school day in middle school. Was
the
getting
kids
that
are
little
not gaining weight. They aren't heavy because of chocolate milk once a day in school. And actually, a lot of studies are showing that may take away some of the opportunities for them to get some calcium, because some kids don't want regular milk. They only want chocolate. So if they're not going to drink anything, then that takes away a lot of good nutrients from them. So, I mean, I feel like there are other things we can look at, not chocolate milk. Hands off our chocolate milk.
Yeah.
There, we've said it. It's not a done deal, but they're definitely looking at it. Okay, most of our stories this week apparently have young people in them. And this next one is no different. But I love this story. This happened in Jacksonville it's either a little league game. I think it was a little league game. This kid was at home plate getting ready to take a bat. Look!
That is insane.
Devil just comes and just surrounds him. And look at the umpire. He's a hero right now. And I just can't even imagine what would have happened. The little kid said that it lifted him up a little bit. So let's take a listen to what they said, because I think they're going to be best buds.
Okay.
Saw him like freaked out, just like trying to like fight his way out of it, and I knew like his little body couldn't get out of it himself, so I just rushed in there.
I was not trying to think about bad stuff like Twister, the movie, and I was trying to
Kids shouldn't be watching
about,
Twister.
like happy stuff. Really happy when he pulled me out, so I could breathe more.
I just would love to have a one-on-one day with him.
Oh, they're best buds now, Gigi.
That's awesome. I love it. I thought the same thing too. I'm like, why is this? I think he's like 7. Why has he seen Twister? First of all, bad stuff. That movie was bad stuff.
It was.
It's
whole true.
Thing.
But I mean, I will say I saw a lot of headlines about this story. I think it's a great story. It's totally crazy that it whipped up right there on home plate. Like, what are the odds of that? And it was nice of him to grab
while
the kid.
He was at bat.
Kid got dirt in his eye. He was actually the catcher. That kid was the catcher. And he got kind of whirled up in it. But I wouldn't say he saved his life. Okay. It's a dust devil. You know, I'm seeing all these headlines when I was looking to get the details on the story. And they're like, oh, yeah, he saved his. I'm like, it wasn't an F5 tornado. I mean, I'm glad.
This kid weighs like 60 pounds. It lifted him already.
He's not getting lifted up. Ginger Gadsden.
Okay, listen, read some of the stories. And he was so thankful that the umpire came and Matt saved his life. You're such a bully today.
Oh my gosh, you're so dramatic. All right, we've got some more good stuff coming for you after the break. We're going to talk about Florida's sunshine laws. It's one of the great things about being a journalist in Florida is that we have so many laws that give us access that a lot of people in other states don't have. But some of those are getting rolled back by the governor and the state legislature. We're going to talk to another journalist about what's happening right now after the break.
Well, welcome everyone. You know, Florida is known for its beautiful beaches, its theme parks, and of course, its sunshine. The kind of sunshine that gets you the good old vitamin D, but also the other kind of sunshine that focuses on our laws and, you know, show you the transparency. But some, Matt, would argue that there has been a dark shadow cast on our sunshine laws. Welcome to Florida's Fourth Estate. I'm Ginger Gadsden.
Yeah, we're glad to have you with us. We've got an interesting show. I'm Matt Austin. You know, you can't deny from whichever political spectrum you're from, we have a very popular governor. He just dominated an election. He is number 2 in the running for the Republican nomination right now, at least if you believe in polling. A pretty solid number 2. And with someone who is so popular, sometimes they can make some laws and some legislation that maybe other governors might not get away with. Ginger's talking about our sunshine laws, which is really one of the great things about living in the state of Florida, having transparency, knowing what politicians are doing behind the scenes. Well, there have been many exceptions put into those sunshine laws that are having an impact on how journalists are able to do their jobs. And Ginger, this just came up. One of the reasons we're doing this is because of a press conference that our own Mike DeForest was at with Attorney General Ashley Moody, right?
Yeah, so he tried his best to get a solid answer out of her, and this was the exchange.
Fair to say your office considers it to be a champion for Florida's government and the sunshine laws, public records?
And those laws were put in place to make sure that the folks that hired us to do these jobs, the citizens of our state, can make sure that they keep track with everything that is going on in government.
But what about the governor?
Let me just make sure is there any other question? And as for any other officer and how they handle those processes, I just couldn't comment to that.
Okay, is there anyone else that we're going to have as a guest today, Matt, before we move on with our guest? Is there another guest? Never mind. Okay, so that exchange was...
Does anyone else have any questions? Anybody else outside of this big guy from Channel 6?
Bueller? Anyone?
So we're bringing in a journalist. We wanted to bring in somebody. We work with a lot of journalists in our building who are fantastic, but I didn't want this show to look like a sour grapes, like, oh, Channel 6 is just complaining about the Records Act, because this is something that many journalists are dealing with. We have Jason Garcia. He worked with the Sentinel for a long time. Now he's on Substack, and if you want to check him out at seekingrentsfl.com, he does some really great journalism in which he talks about things like this and really corporate influences in state laws. Jason, welcome to Florida's Fourth Estate. We're glad to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's talk about what it is like dealing with this administration and dealing with the state for the last few years since Ron DeSantis has been governor. For us, I don't know how it's been for you, but we have seen huge delays when we make open records requests that we maybe haven't seen before his administration.
Yeah, I've been doing this since the Jeb Bush administration, just to sort of date myself a little bit. And the DeSantis administration is by far the worst at complying with public records laws and sort of fulfilling public records requests in anything remotely resembling, speed or efficiency. So I'll give you one example, and reporters around the state all have similar stories, but I put a request in last session. So we're talking about after the 2022 session. It was the day after the session ended, asking for the emails for his legislative affairs director during the session, right? This is the top governor's aide who sort of serves as his own lobbyist, his point of contact with the legislature. That was more than a year ago. I still have not had that records request fulfilled, right? And there's no reason for it, right? They slow walk these because they can, and they dare folks to sue them.
And, and they're hoping that you'll just walk away and forget about it. And, these laws aren't just for us as journalists, even though it's very important that we get the information so we can do a fair job of reporting and have all the facts. But citizens can also request something like that. What does that do for the trust of an average Joe who wants to know, well, okay, if they say it is, I can have access to this, and it is weeks, months, if not years in some cases, what does that do to the trust factor?
Oh, it's incredibly corrosive, right? I mean, everybody sort of, especially in Florida where we have such a history of open government. I mean, it's enshrined in our Constitution, these sunshine laws, right? Everybody expects, transparency. They expect access to public meetings. They expect access to public records. They expect to be able to sort of understand how and why decisions get made. And so when you start holding that stuff back, it just sort of further erodes trust and confidence in government, right? Which is, a big part of why we're seeing such polarization is, folks don't trust government. And this is the sort of thing that further makes folks not trust government.
I would like to talk about some of the exemptions that are being put in place by lawmakers after this legislative session. One of the big ones that's been talked about is about DeSantis's movement. So on his state plane, for anybody he loans the plane and whoever visits him in Tallahassee, all of that will now be closed. You don't know who your governor is seeing when he's in Tallahassee. And by the way, fascinating that they put this in there. It's retroactive. So all of the requests media have in right now, out the window, Jason.
Yeah. This bill is 100% about sort of propping up the governor's impending presidential campaign, and it does it in two ways. So we're talking about basically concealing all the governor's travel records and meeting records at the governor's mansion, which is, a building you and I and the rest of Florida taxpayers own, right? And so he's about to do more travel than ever because he's going to be campaigning for president while he's governor. The New York Times just had a story that said he's already scheduling meetings with donors at the governor's mansion. And now we're not going to be able to find out details about those meetings or those travel or how he's getting there, who he's going with. But like you pointed out, what makes this records exemption just I think unlike just about anything any of us have ever seen is it's retroactive. It applies to all past, present, and future travel. And there are news organizations that have been looking for that have been requesting travel records and waiting for months on this. I think Gannett's Florida newspapers had a story recently where they've been waiting 10 months for some travel records they requested from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. This bill is going to nullify that request before it ever gets fulfilled. And the other way this helps the presidential campaign, right, is Ron DeSantis is about to be subjected to scrutiny unlike any he has ever been through as a top-tier presidential candidate, right? You're going to have media from across the country looking into him. And one of the places they would normally be going for is all his travel he's taken as governor, who's he met with at the governor's mansion during his time as governor. And suddenly all of these records are going to be walled off from everyone.
It just seems a lot of it, some of it has been let's throw everything at the wall and see what actually sticks.
One of the other things that they're doing right now is Ron DeSantis is claiming executive privilege as if he were a U.S. president, right? And he's basically making the case in a number of different court cases, a number of different lawsuits going right now that he is exempt from certain parts of public records law because of executive privilege, which is not something that exists in the Florida Constitution, anywhere in Florida statutes, right? But they found one trial court judge so far to say, you know what, the governor of Florida does have executive privilege. So that's now an appellate court case. And honestly, that might be the biggest public records thing happening in Florida right now, that case.
Wow. Can you imagine if that were changed to where executive privilege goes to governors and senators and maybe the CEO of companies? What if you're an executive? I've never. Yeah,
don't even put that out there.
That's pretty amazing. Oh, it's out there, baby. So as we move forward, Jason, do you feel like maybe because this session is situated where it is, to where he's obviously gearing up for a presidential run, maybe if you think vice president, you might think that as well. Do you think it'll calm down next session and maybe they'll focus on some things like insurance, homeowners insurance and things like that?
It's hard to say what next year looks like. I would expect if he is still battling for the nomination in a primary setting, I think it'll look a lot like this session just did. If he's one kind of on the way to winning the nomination, I think it'll probably be a lot calmer than this session was. If he's dropped out or Trump has obliterated him, I have no idea what to expect at that point.
I have never been alive in a time in which a Florida legislature would do pretty much anything the Florida governor wants. And that, for Republicans, for Ron DeSantis's base, for him to be able to come in and get the things done that they want done, that's pretty much why he's been so popular for a lot of people. I think that's fair to say, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I just had this story a couple of days ago, but 3 days after Disney sued Ron DeSantis for accusing him of sort of unconstitutionally retaliating against the company, the Florida legislature tripled his taxpayer-funded budget for lawyers. Right? The Florida legislature has turned itself into a division of the governor's office.
Yeah, which is weird. It's really weird for our state. If you've ever covered state politics in Florida, right, it has always been governor, speaker of the house, fighting with the. It is never easy to get stuff done. So
I just find it hard to believe that the citizens want to fund all of this, all of the legal activity that's going on. That's the thing that I find hard to swallow.
Yeah, and it's a real cost, right? So if you just add up the money in this year's budget for litigation, this is the governor's office litigation budget, and then they also spread it out through some agencies like the Board of Governors, which oversees the state's universities. They're about to get sued because there's a bunch of academic freedom laws going into effect, right? If you just add up that money, it's about $16 million.
Those lawyers, $700 an hour usually, and they don't give the government a break. It is wild. Jason Garcia, I'm so glad that you do the work you do. If you want to check him out, seekingrentsfl.com. You can also find him on Substack. He is out on his own, which is always impressive as a journalist to see how you guys do. So thanks for joining us for Florida's Fourth Estate, my man, and good luck.
Thanks, Jason.
Oh, thanks very much. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And thank you for watching Florida's Fourth Estate. You can download it from wherever you listen to podcasts or watch anytime on News 6 Plus.